Uh, Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the third session in the MAARG Mentorship series for budding entrepreneurs. This series is being organized by DPIT as a part of the Innovation Week to commemorate the National Startup Day as announced by the Honorable Prime Minister of India on 16th January. Between 9th and 16th January, we are hosting a series of events which includes this mentorship series for budding entrepreneurs in the country. Today we have with us Professor Dhruv Nath, who's an angel investor, has been a mentor to startups and author, and also invested in over 20 startups so far. He has a wide range of experience consulting top companies like Glaxo, Gillette, Nestle, Indian Oil, and has also experienced experience as a teacher with Management Development Institute, Gurugram. Today, Professor Dhruv Nath will be taking a session on preparing a pitch deck as well as uh, looking at your funding opportunities when you take up your business idea. Over to Professor.
Okay, thanks, Mukund. So, by the way, I was hoping this would be an interactive session, but I am told that I cannot ask you questions and you can't ask me questions, at least during the session. So, it may become a little boring, but you're welcome to ask questions at some stage and I'll take them. Hmm? Okay, so let me just start my presentation. So, if I, Mukund, if I hold on. So if I share my window, what will that do?
It will share sir, it will share the entire PowerPoint screen, and if you go into the slideshow mode, it will then start sharing the presentation.
Okay. So can you see this?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay. So um, so I have been asked to talk about what you should do in case you're looking at money, in case you're looking at funding for your startup. So what I will do is, by the way, this is a book that I've written. It's called Funding Your Startup and Other
Uh,
Nightmares.
Sir, just a second. Can you just put it into the slideshow mode so that the slide is a little bit enlarged? It will be easier for everyone
It
to.
is in slideshow mode. Hold on.
Okay.
So 1 minute, then I'll just stop sharing and get into full screen. 1 minute. यार तुम सीधे सीधे Zoom क्यों नहीं यूज करते हो? अच्छा, by the way, tell me, I presume these are people from all across the country.
Yes, sir.
So which
So
means there will
we are live on all Startup India handles on LinkedIn, YouTube. All of them can view and add in comments during the presentation as well.
so therefore I cannot switch to Hindi in between. It has to remain
You
English.
can you can actually we will get comments if they request you to switch back as well.
Okay, then let me know. Let me know.
Hmm.
ठीक है. So I'll just share the full screen now.
Hmm.
Entire screen. Wait. Can you see this?
Yes, perfect, sir. It's
Yeah.
on full screen now.
Okay, fine. Good. So, um, just to explain, this is a book that I had written. It's called Funding Your Startup. And if you see the little tagline below that, it is and other nightmares, because getting money from anybody is not easy, right? It's a bit of a nightmare. So, this is a book, and I will be basing this session on this book. I've also mentioned my LinkedIn handle at the bottom. So you guys are welcome to connect with me. And anybody who connects with me, I always respond. So it's not that I'll ignore what you said. Okay. So what I will do is I will do it in two parts, again, depending on the amount of time I have. First of all, I will talk about one case, one startup that I have been personally involved in, and I will take you through what is required to make it successful, and therefore what is it that investors look for. Okay, so I'll talk about that, and then we will go into how you create your pitch deck. Is that okay? Can you hear, Mukund?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay.
Loud and clear.
So when you're not able to hear, just tell me. Okay.
Yes.
So this is an interesting startup which was created around 6 years back, 5 years back. It's called Squirrel. If you ever watch squirrels in action, you'll notice that they look for things like nuts and berries and other kinds of food. And sometimes they eat the food, but sometimes they save the food, right? Because there will be times when they do not get food and therefore they need to save. Now, if you look at humans, they also need to save, although it is not food, it is money, right? But there is one very fundamental problem with saving, right? And I am sure you can guess what that problem is. The problem is there are far too many temptations in life, isn't it? So I can let me take an example. Tomorrow, if Royal Enfield were to come out with a brand new 700cc motorbike, I can guarantee that most of you guys will land up at the showroom nearest to you, maybe at 5 in the morning because you have to buy it, and to hell with savings, right? Because all your savings are gone. Or you look at the ladies or the girls in the group. I'm sure tomorrow, if one of our film stars, film actresses were to come up with a new dress, I'm sure they would go to their designers or their tailor and say, "मेरे को ये चाहिए. This is what I want," right? And again, to hell with savings. So the problem is, you have far too many temptations in life, and therefore, even though people want to save, they ultimately are not able to. Okay, so now what these founders did was they said, okay, let us see how people have been saving successfully, and they went back in time to your grandmother's time, right? And in your grandmother's time, you would have had things like this. It's called a gullak. At least in North India, it's called a gullak, and there is a little slot. Mukund, you can see this pointer, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, ठीक है. So this is a good luck, and let's take an example. So let's say your grandmother were to buy sabzi, vegetables worth 9 rupees 80 paise from the vegetable vendor, the sabzi wala, and she gives him a 10 rupee note, and he gives her 20 paise back. That 20 paise goes into the good luck. So every time she buys something, that little bit of change that is left over goes into the good luck. Right? Now, the fundamental issue here is, I told you there are far too many temptations in life and therefore savings doesn't work. But in this case, savings works very, very well. And the simple reason for that is that it is painless. Why? Because if you spend 9 rupees 80 paise, spending an extra 20 paise, absolutely no problem. What is the problem? I mean, you spend 980, you might as well spend 10, but that 20 paise is not saved, sorry, is not spent, it actually goes into your gullak. Okay, and that's why it works, because it's only very tiny amounts that are saved. Now, Squirrel, they said, look, we are in a digital world, and therefore, what we'll do is we will automate this gullak. So what they did was they created an app. Okay, and when you download the app and you register, every time you spend money digitally, which means it could be through a credit card, it could be through a debit card, it could be through net banking, UPI, Paytm, it doesn't matter what, right? Every time you spend money, you will get some SMS, correct? And that SMS tells you how much you have spent. So when you registered on Squirrel, you gave Squirrel a chance to see these SMSs. Okay. So the app, the Squirrel app, knows how much you've spent, right? But there is a slight difference between this and the Gullak. The difference is that they don't save after every transaction. They wait till the end of the week. At the end of the week, it totals up your total expenses and then looks at the balance, and that is saved. So, for example, suppose in the week you have spent 1,270 rupees. That 30 rupees change is saved. Okay, and it's saved online. Or if you spend 2,745 rupees, that balance 55 rupees is saved. And again, it's saved online. There is no cash transaction. Okay, so this is how Squirrel works. I must clarify one thing. I assume many of you have girlfriends or boyfriends. Now, I want to clarify something. You may be having a very, very lovey dovey conversation with your girlfriend or boyfriend on SMS, and you're worried that Squirrel will see your conversation. Right? It won't happen. Why? Because Squirrel doesn't care about your love life. Squirrel is not interested. Squirrel is not interested. All they are interested in is how much you have spent. That's it. Okay. So you can, in fact, you can download the app and you can register. And don't worry, your love life is safe. So you can have 3 girlfriends, you can have 6 boyfriends, no problem. Is that okay? Mukund, there is somebody talking nearby. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, yes, quite
Okay.
clearly.
Okay, because there's too much disturbance here. Okay, so now the question is the founders of this company, Squirrel, they just figured out, can they charge for this? And the answer is very simple. You know, on the internet, every damn thing is free, right? I mean, you Google, it's free. You use Facebook, it is free. You use LinkedIn, it is free. You use any email, whether it is Gmail or Hotmail, or it's all free, right? So people have got used to the fact that things on the internet are free, and therefore the founders realized nobody will pay for this. So they said, okay, no problem. You don't pay for this; it's a free service, and we would like lots of you to join and start using the Squirrel app to help you save. Once you have joined, we will give you other financial products and we will charge for them. Okay. What kind of financial products? You can buy insurance through us, you can take a loan through us, you can invest in mutual funds through us, you can do financial planning, etc., etc., etc. Right? So these we will charge a commission for, but simply saving, we are not going to charge anything. I want to clarify one more thing. This investment in mutual fund or buying insurance, etc. It is not with the money that is being saved. That's a very small amount. So you may have saved, let's say, only 400 rupees. But if you want, you can buy mutual funds worth 20,000, 40,000, 5,000, anything. Okay. So, this whole business of um, helping you save is actually a method of marketing. It is not the main business. The main business is selling them these financial products and charging for them. Basically, if you look at rich guys, they have wealth managers. But the average person does not have a wealth manager. He can't afford him. Squirrel becomes a kind of wealth manager for the non wealthy, the average guy. Okay, so this is how they make money, and helping you save is only a method of marketing. Okay, you can probably do, or maybe Mukund, we can ask them to do this for 2 minutes. So just take a look at their website, and then I'll proceed. Take 2 minutes.
Yes.
If you want, you can download their app as well on the phone.
Sir, we can also share the link to the website in case that
Uh,
helps.
no, no, they just Google Squirrel,
Okay.
Sqrrl. Just Google it, you'll get the link. Okay, so I guess most of you would have seen the website. Now, one question which I want you guys to think about while I am making the rest of the presentation is, if you were investors, and remember I told you these guys are about 6 years old. If you were investors, they came to investors to raise money about 5 years ago. Would you have invested in this business or not? And what are the issues you would look at? Why would you invest and why would you not have invested, right? Just think about that while I proceed with the actual story. So now, one of the things that we have done as part of the book, you remember that book I showed you in the beginning, Funding Your Startup. In fact, you can see it in the bottom right hand corner, Funding Your Startup and Other Nightmares. So, one of the things we have done here is we have created what is called a framework to figure out whether your startup is likely to become successful or not. Okay, and that we have done after studying a lot of successful startups as well as a lot of failures. So this framework is called persistent, and you can see this persistent, and each letter in this word persistent stands for something. Okay, so let me take you through each of these one by one and apply it to Squirrel, and then we will see what investors decided. Okay, so the first letter in the word persistent is P, which stands for problem. Obviously, if you want to create a successful business, you have to be solving a problem for somebody. Otherwise, I mean, why would your business survive? Right? And these guys clearly are solving a problem because A, they are helping you to save, and B, they are helping you to buy things like mutual funds, take a loan, buy insurance, etc., etc., etc. Right? So clearly, you're solving a problem. And the second letter in persistent is E, which stands for earnings model, which basically means not only should you be solving a problem for somebody, that somebody has to be willing to pay you for it. Otherwise, you don't have a business, you only have a charity, isn't it? So clearly, here they have an earnings model because while nobody will pay them for helping them save, they will pay them for buying mutual funds, for buying insurance, for taking a loan. That little commission, whatever that little commission is, maybe 1% or 2%. So they do have an earnings model. They do earn revenue from somewhere. Third issue, size of the market. That's the S in persistent. Obviously, very important because if your market size is small, then you will stagnate, right? Then you will not grow. I mean, Mukund, can you see my face right now, or is it only the screen?
No, no, sir, your face is visible, screen is visible as well. Like
Okay,
on the
great.
stream also,
So,
it is visible. I am
okay.
constantly
So
following.
your startup will go like this, and then it will stagnate. Why? It will say और grow नहीं कर सकता. क्यों? मार्केट ही नहीं है. कहाँ से grow करूँगा? Isn't it? So size of the market becomes important. Now, in this case, the size of the market is huge, isn't it? The size of the market is the entire adult middle class in India, which is what, about 30 crores, 40 crores? It's a huge market. You can't imagine a bigger market. So, no problem. However, sometimes you have a market which is very large, but it is crowded. By the way, anybody who has questions, please put them down. And if Mukund feels they need to be answered right now, I'll do that. Otherwise, I'll answer them. I'll take a break at the end of this one presentation, and then I'll answer them. So sometimes, you have a huge market, but the market is very crowded, which means lots and lots of players, lots and lots of businesses which are doing the same thing. So now, if you look at the market here, yes, it's a huge market, 40 crore middle class in India. But who are the competitors? You've got Zerodha, so you can buy mutual funds through them. You have Grow, you can buy mutual funds through them. You have Policy Bazaar, you can buy insurance through them, right? You have ET Money, you have Paytm Money, you have all these huge guys, huge, massive guys, giants. And suddenly there is this Chotu called Squirrel who says, "Boss, I will compete with you." nahi hoga, it won't happen, right? Please remember, and this is one thing I want you guys to remember, if what you're offering is exactly what the giants in the industry are already offering, you cannot compete with them. Okay, so what do you do? So these guys decided on something very interesting. They said, okay, if you look at these giants, they are all aiming at customers who are typically in the age group of about 30 years and above, right? Because by then you're in your first or second job, and by then you're earning a reasonable amount, and therefore, the if you buy mutual funds, it will be a large amount. If you take an insurance policy, it will be a large policy, etc. So they are not interested in guys in college, because college wala, even if he takes if he buys mutual funds, it will be a very tiny amount, right? If he takes insurance, it will be a very very small amount of insurance, correct? So these big giants are not interested in college students or students who just passed out of college and are probably doing their first job. So that area, college students and people who just passed out for, I mean, just in their first or second year of job, nobody's tapping them. Okay. So what did Squirrel do? They said, okay, wonderful. So now within this large, huge 40 crore market, there is a smaller subset, and that subset itself is large. College students and people who just passed out 1 or 2 years earlier. So that is a subset which I will call a niche. NICHE, niche. Subset of the market that itself is non-crowded, and it is large enough because it's about 10 crores. So it's a niche, it's about 10 crores, maybe 8 crores. It's not crowded because the giants are not interested, and therefore they said, okay, we will only focus on this. So, in fact, if you guys want to use Squirrel, you are the target audience, because I understand that most of you are either in college or, I mean, you just passed out. Okay, so you can try out Squirrel, download the app, and register if you want. So, I've covered the four letters of the word persistent. Now, the fifth one. And, this is a very, 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 very critical thing. And most founders, and I'm assuming all of you are founders or want to become founders, most founders who have come to me I mentor a lot of startups. Most founders who come to me, they have this fundamental question: sir, is my startup scalable? If it is not, how do I make it scalable? Okay, so let me try and explain, and I'll explain with an example. Take the example of a kirana shop. Okay, your next door kirana shop. Now, that kirana shop, so when I say scalability, by the way, I don't mean growth of 10, 15, 20% per year. I mean, when you're small, you may have to grow 100, 150, 200%. Okay. And when you're bigger, you still may have to grow at 70, 80, 100%. Okay. So, scalability means the ability to grow fast. Not just grow, but grow fast. Now, if you look at this Kirana shop, the example I was taking, see, the Kirana shop is, if he has to grow dramatically, he has to add Kirana shops, correct? He has to add one more, maybe two more. And if he has four, he has to add maybe two or three more. But adding one more shop is not easy, because you either have to buy it or you have to rent it out. Then you have to get the infrastructure, right? The cupboards, the cabinet, the shelves, the table, etc., etc. Then you have to get people. So there have to be sales guys who are there in the kirana shop, right? So this is a business which is very heavily dependent on people, manpower, and infrastructure, physical infrastructure. The need to get more buildings, the need to get more furniture, etc. These things cannot be done in a hurry, right? They take time. So therefore, a business like a kirana shop is not a scalable business. He cannot suddenly say, I'm going to grow 200% in a year. No, he can't. And by the way, investors want that. So kirana shops are not investable businesses. Take another example. Take the example of Make My Trip, or take a very small online travel portal, right? Maybe Make My Trip 20 years ago. Is that scalable? Sure, it is. Why? Because that business is not manpower dependent. If you have to double your sales, you don't have to double your manpower. You don't have to double your infrastructure, right? Basically, what you have to do is to spend more on marketing and you'll be able to get higher sales, right? So the difference between the kirana shop and Make My Trip is a pure technical business. It's an internet business, not a manpower dependent business. It's a technology dependent business. Whereas the kirana shop is a manpower and infrastructure dependent business. Therefore, it's not scalable. Incidentally, if the kirana shop were to say, we will set up a website and we'll sell online, that is a scalable business because that can grow dramatically. Okay, so I hope you get this point. Any business which is internet dependent, technology dependent, is much more scalable. Any business which is manpower and infrastructure dependent is not scalable. Okay, just think about it for 30 seconds and I'll continue.
Sir, in the meantime, there is one live question I think that you
Yeah,
might
sure.
want to take
Sure,
up.
sure.
So the question is from your perspective as an investor, when we are making a pitch, all these factors are important. But
Yeah.
in what order in my pitch should these things come in? The problem
Okay.
statement, the size of
Okay.
money.
So I will be talking about the pitch towards the end. So I'll just park that question. Mukund, please remind me. I'll take it up when I talk about the pitch. Yeah.
Sure, sure, sir.
Okay. So yeah. So now obviously this one Squirrel, it's a pure technology business and therefore it is very highly scalable. Right? Not a problem at all. Now one fundamental question, and that's a question a lot of people have asked me, and this is my answer. A business need not be scalable, but it could still be very viable. It could still be profitable. Kirana shops are very highly profitable. The Lalaji, the owner, goes home with bundles of cash at the end of every day, but he's not scalable. That's okay. So, you have to decide whether you want to be a scalable business which grows 200%, 100% every year, or do you want to be a smaller business which is very viable, which is getting you a profit, and that's it. It may not be growing, it may be growing 10% per year, or it may not grow at all. Again, that's a decision you have to take, right? For example, lawyer's business, it is not scalable because it is people dependent, right? So you have to take a call whether you want your business to be scalable or not. But just remember, investors will not put in money if it is not scalable. Okay. Now, next issue is obviously every business has risks, and that's the R in persistent. And the biggest risk, one of the biggest risks, is the risk of competition entering and taking away your customers, which is why you need an entry barrier. Entry barrier is what? This is my business. I have to prevent my competitor from coming in and pulling out my customers. So I need a barrier. So it's a barrier which prevents my competitor from entering. And if you have an innovative solution, which is the I in persistent, it's a very good entry barrier. For example, if you have a complex piece of software which your competitor is will take time to copy, that's a good entry barrier. If you've been able to build up a strong brand where your customers trust you, that's a very good entry barrier. If you have a patent, that's a great entry barrier, right? So innovative solutions will always lead to good strong entry barriers. Now, if you look at Squirrel, frankly, it has no entry barrier. Anybody can copy it. It's a very easy business to copy. But over time, the brand becomes a bit of an entry barrier, and therefore one more reason why you need to scale up rapidly and therefore build the brand. Okay. Last two, team. And the team starts with founders. Obviously, a great team of founders is necessary to build a successful startup. And investors, in any case, look at at an early stage. investors look more at the team than at the business. Okay. And final proof, traction. What's the final proof? Are you getting revenues? Are you getting customers? Are the revenues increasing month on month? Are the same customers staying on or are they leaving? Right. So these are figures that you need. Now the next question is, what do investors look for? Actually, if you think about it, it's exactly the same, isn't it? They look for a good solid team. They look for a problem that you're solving for the customer. They look for an innovative solution. They look for an entry barrier. They look for scalability, and of course, they look for traction. कि boss धंधा आ रहा है कि नहीं, or is it just an idea, right? So investors look for this, and Squirrel was able to raise $1 million, which means at that time about 7 crores within 1 year of launch. Today, Squirrel has about 14 lakh downloads, right? In fact, now it will be more. It's about 20 lakh downloads and about 6 lakh active monthly users. Okay. And by the way, they have been bought out by a bigger company, which is an NBFC, and all the investors and the founder, they have got a profitable exit. So it's been a decent success story. Okay, so that concludes the first of the presentations I had, and I will come to the pitch that you guys asked for. But if you have any other questions which I can take up right now, let's have them. Otherwise, I'll switch to this whole business of investments.
So, sir, we do have a couple of questions that have come in. They are regarding uh, assessing a business or how to enter a market.
How to enter a
So,
market?
yes. And questions on scalability. So, one question that is common, I think a couple of people have asked is, in case of a manufacturing company, do we consider it to be non-scalable because setting up every unit is a very
Yes,
investment
yes,
heavy exercise?
yes, yes. You're absolutely right. So typically, investors are not very comfortable investing in manufacturing companies, and you're absolutely right, because for setting up every plant, for expansion of your plant, you will need money, you will need time, you will need manpower. However, there is a way to make it scalable, and I'll take a very simple example. One of the So by the way, I am from Lead Angels, you can see that here. That's an angel network, and I'll come to what that is. So we have invested in one company called Go Desi. Go Desi. I assume you guys have, some of you have tried out things like Desi Pops, Desi Meetha. These are basically sweets which have Indian flavors, not strawberry and vanilla and co. Their flavors are things like kathal, which is jackfruit, or khatta aam, or nimbu, or imli. These kinds of Indian fruit. And this is a market leader today. In its space, it is a market leader. It is the fastest growing confectionery brand on Amazon. Now, the way these guys work is, so they manufacture sweets, they make sweets. The problem is exactly what you guys have asked, which is, for making these sweets, basically you have to first of all grow the raw material. Okay, you have to grow either imli, or you have to grow nimbu, or you have to grow kathal or aam or whatever, mango or whatever, right? Secondly, you have to set up a plant. I think there is some disturbance coming somewhere. Mukund, maybe at your end. So you have to set up a plant where you will process all this and make it into sweets. Correct? The problem is setting up this plant. See, growing is not a problem. You can buy these from farmers. But setting up the plant means you have to acquire land, you have to set up a shed, you have to set up this entire infrastructure, you have to get manpower. Again, it's a manufacturing business, it is not scalable. But what this guy has done is he has said, okay, I will set up one plant of my own, and that is my a kind of master plant. In that plant, I will do this processing and I will create these sweets. But in this, I will formalize the processes. I will figure out what the correct process should be, and then I will get other farmers to set up their plants. Right? So basically, he says, I will do manufacturing only in one plant, but I will look for other farmers who have land and who are growing the right crops. You set up the plant, you manufacture it, but under my guidance, my quality control, my process. I will package it, I will brand it under Godesi, I will market and distribute it. Okay. So now suddenly, while it is a manufacturing business, he has outsourced the manufacturing to a lot of other farmers. And he is basically now in a consumer business where he is branding, marketing, distributing, selling. That works very well because that is very highly scalable. So there are ways of converting a manufacturing business into something scalable. But if you are doing everything and you are not outsourcing the manufacturing, then yes, it is not scalable. It may still be very highly profitable, but you are not likely to get investors. The other issue with manufacturing, by the way, is depending on what the product is, many investors are scared of Chinese products. You know, if Chinese products are available at a lower price than yours, then you may go out of business. So that's another concern investors have. But other than these, like I said, if you outsource, you should not have a problem. Is that okay? So Mukund, any other questions right now?
Yes, sir. There are two more questions. One is when we are thinking about a business idea, should proving the PMF be priority before we think of how to scale it?
Sorry,
And
what is PMF?
this product market fit.
Oh, okay, okay. Okay, you are young. No, I don't use abbreviations. Okay, so before looking at investors or before looking at?
So yes, before taking it to investors or building a thesis, should we think about proving the PMF before we think about how if it's scalable or not?
Okay, so let me go back for a minute. 1 minute. Let me go back to my earlier slide. Yeah. Okay, you remember I had shown you this slide? Okay. Now, you must remember, see, okay, let me just do one thing. Mukund, let me take because many of these questions will get answered in the second part of the presentation. Let me handle that and then please remember these questions. I'll come back to them. Is that okay?
Sure, sure, sir. Yeah.
Because I'm already talking about that. Okay. So now this is the second part, which is raising funds. Yeah. Again, this is from the same book. So, first of all, if you're raising funds, normally there are three different kinds of funding. Okay. One is a grant, which means somebody is just given you money. They just given you money. They are not getting shares. They're not giving you a loan. They're not asking for the money back. This is the best kind of funding you can get, and normally this comes from a government agency, but it is available only in very specialized areas. For example, if you're doing something in the area of healthcare, health tech, uh, there is a government agency called BIRAC, and you can check it out in case you have a healthcare startup. These people give you grants, and these grants can be fairly big. They can be 50 lakhs, 1 crore, even more than that. And that is basically the government giving you money because they want to support startups in these areas, and they know that many of these startups will not be able to get money from outside. So therefore, the government helps you. So in specialized areas, for example, in anything to do with rural development, the government will be willing, right? So these are grants. The second category is what I call debt, which is basically a loan. Now, you must realize when somebody gives you a loan, they expect that loan to be paid back with interest. And therefore, if you do not have revenues, if you are pre-revenue, they will not give you a loan. If you are generating revenues but you're making a loss, again they will not give you a loan because they know the money will not be paid back. So loans are available and there are multiple banks who give it to you. You have the Mudra loan, for example, but loans are normally available only if you are generating revenues and not only revenues but you're also profitable. But unfortunately, at an early stage, most startups are not profitable. Therefore, debt funding is not available to early stage startups. Okay, the most common method is equity, which means the investor puts in money and gets shares in your company. Right. So, what I will talk about here is equity funding because that's the most common and that's the one which you're most likely to access. So, first place to get money obviously is friends and family, and these people obviously will give you money at a very early stage. uh, it could even be at the idea stage. I mean, you may not have built your product yet, may not have developed your software yet, so they may give you money very very early, and they know you, therefore they will not ask too many questions, right? They won't ask too many details. They will say ठीक है बेटा ले लो, I mean, हमारा ही तो बच्चा है ले ले. Or a friend will say okay, I'll give you amounts, but it will be small amounts. Yeah? I want to clarify one thing, and this is a bit of advice I want to give you guys. Always maintain very good relations with your rich relatives. Okay, wish them on their birthday, wish them on Diwali, wish them on Christmas, wish them on Eid, wish them on Ambedkar Jayanti, on Guru Nanak's birthday. It's every look for any opportunity because you never know when you want money from them. Chacha, mama, dada, etc., etc. Right? Poor relatives you want to maintain good relations with, that is your problem, entirely up to you. But if you want money, maintain good relations with rich relatives. Okay, so this is friends and family. Next, we come to angel investors. So angel investors are basically the first external investors in your company, which means these are people who don't know you. They're not from your family. They're not from your friends. They don't know you, and because they don't know you, they need far more details about your startup to be convinced. And typically, they will look for some level of traction, which means they will look for some revenues. Okay, why? Because you know your friend, and by the way, they will put in a little more money than friends and family. And typically, an angel investor will put in maybe 5 lakhs, 10 lakhs, maybe 3 lakhs, 15 lakhs, that range. Now, I'll answer one of the questions that somebody had asked, which is, do you need to have your product market fit? See, when you're going to friends and family, you don't need anything, right? You basically need those people to have confidence in you that you will not run away with the money. That's all. But angel investors, you must remember, about 10 to 15 years ago, I used to be an angel investor at that time. I still am. They used to put money in bright ideas. They used to put money in products which had not yet been tested out in the market or where the testing was very, very low. Unfortunately, most of them have lost money. I've also lost money, right? So now they say, boss, it is not just enough to have a great product. Show me proof that the market has accepted your product. So when you say product market fit, yes, when you go to angel investors, they will look for a product market fit. Definitely. Right? If you say I have a wonderful product but I haven't yet tried it out and people haven't bought it so far, angel investors usually will not accept it. They will not usually put in money. Okay. There are some exceptions, and I must explain those exceptions. So, for example, today you have this whole area of deep tech. This whole business of artificial intelligence, generative AI, chat GPT, etc. Here, investors realize that this is completely new and they don't know what the direction is going to be. They don't know where the business is coming from, but they want to be part of this because they know somewhere these businesses will make money. So, in some of these high tech businesses, even if you do not have solid revenues, even if you have, let's say, pilots are required. I mean, just a product is not enough. If you have a pilot and that's a successful pilot, even there you will be able to get some angel investor, right? So in general, yes, you need revenues. In fact, if I look at most angel networks such as ours, I told you I am from Lead Angels. uh, we look for typically not only revenues, we look for something called gross margin. And I think I need to explain what gross margin is. See, let me take an example. Let's say this is a pen. Okay. Now this pen costs me 10 rupees to manufacture and sell. And when I sell it in the market, I get 20 rupees. So each pen costs me 10 rupees, but I sell it for 20 rupees. So on each pen, I'm making a margin of 10 rupees, and I call that gross margin. Right? Separately, there are some expenses which I have which are not linked to each pen. For example, I run an office, so I pay rent for that office, right? I have manpower, I pay salaries, right? I pay for the electricity in the office. I spend on advertisements, that's marketing cost. Now, those are something which I can't link to each pen. Those are overall overheads. So there are some expenses which are directly linked to the pen, manufacturing and selling of this one pen, and there are some which are overheads. Gross margin means what is the amount I will make purely based on the sale price and the cost price of making and selling this pen, ignoring all the overheads. Okay, which means for each pen I sell, I make 10 rupees. If I sell a larger number of pens, the overheads don't go up. I don't consume more electricity. I don't have more manpower, right? But the overheads remain the same. But the 10 rupees I'm spending on each pen that keeps going up because I'm producing and selling more pens. So at some stage, I'm earning 10 rupees per pen. At some stage, that 10 rupees multiplied by the number of pens I've sold becomes larger than my overheads, and that's when I become overall profitable. Okay. Investors do not expect you to be overall profitable right now at an early stage. No, they are realistic, they don't expect that. But they do expect your gross margin to be positive. Because if your gross margin is negative, that means for each pen that you sell, you're losing money. You sell more pens, you lose more money. No investor will finance you. Correct? So gross margin needs to be positive, and as angel investors, we normally look for an annualized gross margin, which means the monthly gross margin multiplied by 12 of about 50 lakhs. Okay, so that's what we normally look at. Yes, if it's a high tech thing, if it's a very exciting thing, completely new technology, we will come down. Sometimes just a pilot will be enough. But in general, yes, product market fit, and most investors will look for this 50 lakh kind of annualized gross margin. It's a long answer, but I hope I've answered your question. Mukund, any other
Sir,
questions?
yes, sir, there are a couple more questions. We have limited time on our hands, 15-20 minutes. So I was thinking if we
Okay.
can
So
wrap up the
actually,
presentation and we collate the questions.
So Nazia told me I could carry on till about 12:30 types. Huh?
Yes, yes. But like there are questions, so we wanted to keep ample time for question
Okay.
and
No, no.
answer.
So I'll just finish this. Give me 5 minutes and then we'll get back to questions.
Sure. Yep.
Okay. Let me just finish this first. Okay. So they'll put in more money than family friends. Okay. Now you must remember one more thing. Once upon a time, there were only a few rich angels. Okay. Who were these rich guys? Narayan Murthy, Ratan Tata, Nandan Nilekani, okay, Azim Premji, Mukund. Mukund, you are one of these rich angels, right?
No,
यार
sir, not
हंसी
yet.
सीरियस बात कर रहा हूँ. Okay, so if a startup wanted 1 crore, नारायण मूर्ति के लिए क्या प्रॉब्लम है? हाँ, I'll put in 1 crore. Ratan Tata, what is the? I'll put in 1 crore. So one angel investor is enough. But this was 20 years ago, or even more than that. Today there is a huge amount of interest. So even the non-rich guy has become an angel investor, right? And for example, till 3 years back, I was a professor. I was earning a government salary. there is no way I can invest 1 crore in a company, but I can certainly invest 5 lakhs. So I became an angel investor. And like me, there are lots of people who are the common man, not rich guys. They are becoming angel investors now, and we have probably about 50,000 of these. And I have a term which I've created for these. I have called them Aam Aadmi angel investors. Those who live in Delhi would know what Aam Aadmi stands for, but I must clarify it has absolutely nothing to do with the Aam Aadmi party. Absolutely nothing. It is basically common man. Now look at the problem. When you had a rich angel 20 years ago, one angel was enough. Now the Aam Aadmi angel can only put in 5 lakhs. So if you want to raise 1 crore for a startup, you need 20 angels. If you want to raise 2 crores, you need 40, 45, 50 angels, right? How do these guys get together? They get together through what is called an angel network. Okay, so an angel network is like a club. It's a club, right? And uh, in this club, obviously every club has members, so they have members. So at Lead Angels, for example, which is where I come from, it's a club and we have about 500, 450 odd members, and each member is an angel investor. Now if you're a startup, you don't approach an individual angel because you don't even know who's an angel. You have no idea. You approach the angel network. So you connect with Lead Angels, or you connect with any other angel network. There are others as well. You may have heard of Mumbai Angels, you may have heard of Indian Angel Network, right? So there are about 8 or 10 big ones, and there are a lot of smaller ones as well. So you connect with them, and we will help the investors, that is our members, and the startup get together. The deal will be evaluated, and hopefully, ultimately, you get your money. Okay, so please remember, when you're looking for money, you need to approach angel networks. And if you just type angel networks in India in on Google, you'll get a list of all of them. You'll get emails, or if you want, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. And if you of course, like I said, we want revenues. We do not invest pre-revenue companies. And if you satisfy those, sure, I'll put you up to Lead Angel, and we can consider your case. Okay, so now VCs. I just want to conclude with this. You know, venture capitalists. What's the fundamental difference between angels and VCs? Fundamental difference is angels invest their own money, whereas VCs take money from other investors and put that in, and they invest that money. It's a little like buying shares directly in the stock market versus putting money into a mutual fund. So I like Reliance Industries. I buy shares. I'm investing directly. But I want to invest in the share market. I don't know how. I give it to a mutual fund. The fund manager invests my money on my behalf. That's the difference, right? So an angel invests his own money. A VC takes in money from others and invests somebody else's money, which means that the VC cannot take the kind of risk that the angel can, because he can't lose everybody's money, right? Otherwise, he'll be out of business. Nobody will give him money the second time. So, VCs therefore have to invest when companies are more stable, which means at a later stage. And they will do much heavier evaluation, but they will put in more money. Okay, so you will start with friends and family, you'll move to angels, and at an early stage, typically it will be angel networks, and then at some stage, you may go to VCs. That is the sequence of funding. Just to summarize, level of risk is the highest with friends and family, amount of investment is the smallest, highest with the VCs, and valuation is the highest with VCs. Okay, I've already mentioned this. So now, just to conclude, what should your pitch deck contain? There was a question regarding this. Uh, Obviously, this has to be there in your pitch deck, right? In addition, what you need is, you need to be able to talk about what's your competition, and please never say you don't have competition, because the investor will immediately think you haven't studied competition, right? You'll always have competition, so it's best to be frank. You'll have to talk about past performance. You'll have to talk about future projections. how much you need, what you will use it for, and at what valuation. Okay. Somebody had a question regarding sequence. See, normally the first point is you have to start with problem. What is the problem you're solving, right? What is your solution? Then you talk about the size of the market, and then you talk about the fact that it is scalable, and what is your entry barrier. That's very, very important. In fact, the two key things investors look for is, are you scalable, and B, do you have an entry barrier? Otherwise, somebody is going to copy you. Once you've done this, then you talk about the rest. Okay. So start with problem. It's a large problem, therefore market size. This is our solution. It's a scalable solution. This is our entry barrier, even though we have competition. Okay. So typically that's a sequence. I must clarify one more thing. Sometimes you will not get more than 2 minutes or 5 minutes, or well, if you're lucky, you'll get 10 to 15 minutes to make a pitch. Please remember, you don't have to say everything. Your purpose is not to get the check at the end of these 15 minutes or 10 minutes or 5 minutes. You will never get your check. Your purpose is to create enough interest so that the investors are willing to meet you once more. And for example, chal yaar coffee peete hain, I am interested, let's understand more. So whatever you're doing, don't try and cover too much. Cover the main things that you want to talk about, and make sure that your purpose is to create enough interest so the guy comes back and wants to meet you again. That is the key in your pitch deck. I'll just give you a parallel. By the way, if you go back to the 2014 elections, right? Prime Minister Modi, he made a lot of speeches. He said lots of things. Most people didn't remember them, but they remembered one sentence, and that sentence was "अच्छे दिन आने वाले हैं." Right? So whatever he said, you may have forgotten, but you remember, "अच्छा अच्छे दिन आने वाले हैं." Similarly, when you make a pitch, please remember those two, three things that you want the guy to be interested in, and remember, those have to come across. If you are not able to talk about the rest, don't worry. Keep them as backup slides in case somebody asks a question. Show that slide, but don't try and pack in everything in anything, and have simple slides. Okay, that's your pitch. So that concludes my second part, and I think now let's tackle questions. Maybe I'll stop sharing now. So, one minute.
Yes, thank you, sir, for that comprehensive presentation. I think we covered a lot of ground regarding when to look for funds, which type of investor to approach, how to present a pitch. I think we have a couple of questions that have piled up during the presentation as well. Some interesting questions. The one very basic question is, how do we assess when it's the right time to look for outside money?
So first of all, outside money is of different types. I told you that. Investor money, typically, and it will be angel investor money, will only come in when you have reached those figures that I mentioned, which is 50 lakhs of gross margin. It will vary across networks. Some will take it at 30, some will ask for more, but typically at that stage. Before that, you will not be able to get angel investor money. You will be able to get money from, for example, there are incubators, they'll give you small amounts, right? There are accelerators where they will give you again slightly bigger amounts than incubators. These are people who will support you, and you will get money. You can go to them at an early stage. In fact, incubators you can go to even when you have no money at all, even when your product is see, if you have only an idea, the incubator is not likely to accept you. But if you've done some work on the idea, but you want to polish it up, go to an incubator, they'll give you some money. And typically, the other advantage of an incubator is that they will normally get in investors at certain stages. They will have what is called demo days, and you get a chance to pitch to investors also. So incubators, you'll be able to get money earlier. Grants, sure, you can get money earlier for specific area. Family, friends, I mean, it depends on your relationships. But angel investors, you will go only when you have reached a certain level of revenue. where the product is reasonably defined and you know this business is likely to continue successfully. That's when the investor is likely to be willing to give you money. One more clarification: take money only if you really need it, not because it's fashionable, not because you want to talk about money at parties. No, you know, people brag, "अरे हमने series A, series B raise किया." It's ridiculous. If you need money, take it. If you don't need money, don't take it.
Sir, there are a couple of questions. I think I'll combine them, which are regarding what sort of metrics and different types of businesses investors look at. So, if I'm creating an aggregation platform or if I'm running a service-based business, what sort of metrics and numbers will the investors look at before deciding to make an investment?
See, the basic issue that they look for is obviously A, revenues. So there are many metrics. A is revenues, B is gross margin. This is the biggest thing, right? Then they will look at obviously number of customers, number of repeat customers, and number of, for example, if you are providing a service, right? Number of active customers, because there are people who register but they don't use your service at all. So there is a term that we use, it's called daily active users, monthly active users. So they will typically look for monthly active users, right? Dropout rate, churn rate is one more thing that they look for, because a high churn rate means people are leaving you, which means they are not happy with you, or there is a competitor who's giving better products or services. The other things, so these are some things they'll ask for. One more thing which is very critical is the cost of acquisition of a customer. And if your cost of acquisition is too high, then you know you'll always be at a loss. So most angel networks look for a cost of acquisition of a customer which is not more than one third of the revenue that you're likely to get from that customer. Okay, so these are the most common things. Then, of course, it will vary depending on the specific business.
Uh, One more, I think I've clubbed quite a bit of questions, but this is an interesting question. If I have limited amount of funds available, what should I prioritize, generating revenue or scaling to more users without revenue generation?
See, it's not very easy to answer that question. Um, so let's take an example. So let's say you're running let's say an e-commerce site, okay, and you're selling specific products, maybe fashion items. If this business is of interest to investors and you're likely to get funding, then you can grow and expect that funding to come in. Unfortunately, today, most investors, you know, there was a time when you could be making a loss and making a continuous loss and you'd keep getting fundings. Unfortunately, that has now come down. So, investors are looking at what is called a path to profitability, which means we want you to be able to survive on your own, but we will give you money for growth. Okay, so that is where the world has moved, which means you have to move. So, growth is required. I'm not saying growth is not required. Yes, you need paying customers, but at the same time, you must start narrowing down your cash burn. If the investor sees the cash burn increasing month on month, then he will say, "Boss, there is no end to this. I will not put in money." So even if you're making a loss, as long as you're cutting down your average expenses and therefore narrowing down your cash burn month on month, investor is likely to be interested in funding you, provided, of course, those other persistent things are valid, like entry barrier, like scalability, and so on. So I would say you have to show growth, but you have to show growth with cash burn coming down. I think that's the key.
Sir, a couple more questions. A few people are thanking you for their book. Someone is saying your book has been an incredibly valuable in my
Oh, they have read the book, is it? Okay,
entrepreneurial
wonderful.
journey.
Wonderful.
Yes. Uh, One question is, I think this will be relevant to the Squirrel example as well. If we are operating in a regulated industry like fintech, which needs license just to operate as well. How can we demonstrate our product or get started at an early stage?
Okay, that's not easy. Um, I agree with you. So first of all, the investor, if it is a regulated industry and you do need a license, the investor is not going to put in money till you get that license. Very simple, right? Therefore, you have to have the money from your own sources or friends, family to be able to build that product to a stage where it makes sense for you to get that license, and taking the license will take time. So, yes, regulated industry means license is a must. There's no choice. Right? However, there are certain things you can do which may not require a license. When you can partner with a regulated entity, for example, I was just yesterday. I was talking to one guy who does. Uh, he's a kind of partner to banks in rural India. So shopkeepers, what they do is they have a PC or they can even have a phone. On this guy provides them software which connects them to a bank. And I think he has two banks. He has State Bank of India and one more. He doesn't need a license. State Bank of India needs a license, right? So this kind of business where you are partnering with somebody else who's got the license, that is also possible. But yes, you must be very, very careful that um, uh, what you are doing does not require a license. Because I've seen cases where people have got into this kind of business, they didn't have a license, and they were bought out finally by somebody who had a license. So you have to be very, very careful. But yes, look for partnerships.
Uh, I think, sir, we have time for last question, which is what kind of equity should be given in the friends and family round?
Okay, so first of all, it's not just friends and family round. So friends, family round, normally you will give away a few percent, maybe two, three, four, five at the most. Right? Just remember one thing: at every stage that you're getting money, try and dilute only small amounts. So friends, family will be a few percent. Angel round, you should not dilute more than about 10%, not more. Okay? And there is a very simple reason for that. If you dilute too much too early, right? Then at a later stage when you want funding, you've already diluted too much. So the next investor will come and say, boss, you don't have enough skin in the game. And therefore I will not invest in you. So to ensure that you keep yourselves open to future rounds of funding, at every stage don't dilute too much. Normally friends, family few percent, angel investment 10%, and 10 maybe maximum 12, and subsequently again about 10-15% each time. At a much later stage you'll need to invest more, sorry, divest more. That's at a much later stage.
Uh, I think that covers most of the questions broadly, sir. A couple of people have asked if they want to reach out to you. How can they reach
Yeah.
out to you?
So I must clarify. You're most welcome to catch me on LinkedIn. Just search for my name, and I always connect with everybody. I may not be able to mentor everybody. I do mentor some people. I'll at least respond. I will connect. I will at least respond. Some people I do mentor where I think I can, but you must remember, if I mentor everybody, my wife will divorce me because I will not be able to spend time with her. And at my age, I am nearly 70. I will not be able to get a new wife. So therefore, I am a little selective. But definitely, I'll respond. So you're most welcome. And by the way,
Uh,
it's not just me. You're most welcome to pick up the book and read it, because a lot of the questions will get answered. There are actually two books. Funding Your Startup is one, and the other one is called The Dream Founder. That talks about everything else, HR and marketing and execution and so on.
uh, I think, sir, that concludes our session for today. Lots of thank yous coming in on the comments. Thank you for the session and for the awesome book. I think that is it
Thank you.
from our end as well. Thank you so much for
Okay, welcome. All the
giving
best
out
to
your
all of you.
time. Yeah,
Welcome. All the best. All of
thank
you.
you.
Bye.